Yes, the hardest thing for me to deal with is when half of the people don't recognize you. The most adored comedian in the world was a child who stumbled so much that his classmates referred to him as an alien. However, Rowan Atkinson had to pay a price for his metamorphosis. He found that when he performed, his stammer completely vanished. However, only then will each Mr. the Bean incident emotionally depleted him. He described the role as draining and eagerly anticipated the conclusion of the filming. The comedian, who made millions of people laugh, acknowledged that he felt like a fake. At 70, he is now disclosing how his early trauma influenced everything. At last, the mute comedian discovered a way to express his narrative. On January 6, 1955, Rowan Sebastian Atkinson was born in Concert, a tiny town in County Durham, England. He was the youngest of 4 boys, but before he was old enough to recall, a tragic event occurred. Only 3 brothers remained after his oldest brother, Paul, passed away when he was still a baby. Later, Rodney, one of Rowan's brothers, became an economist and nearly led the UK Independence Party in 2000. Rowan had a very tranquil and orderly upbringing on a farm. The irony is that he would eventually gain notoriety for portraying loud, goofy characters. Rowan began to stutter severely when he was about 5 years old. His inability to speak clearly made education quite difficult for him. Bullying was brutal at Durham Chester School, which he attended. There, Canon John Grove recalled Rowan as a quiet youngster with a speech impediment and a rubbery face. He even appeared to be alien-looking, according to some of his classmates. They chuckled at his appearance and speech patterns. And Rowan was by himself much of the time. Tony Blair, who would go on to become Prime Minister, attended that school. Tony, who was 2 years younger, recalled Rowan's difficult circumstances. The bullying was so severe that it was covered in a 2007 piece in The Independent. However, when Rowan took the stage, an odd event occurred. He would no longer stutter at all. He would have no issue performing. That traumatic event from his early years turned become the secret of his talent. Rowan excelled academically despite the bullying. In 1973, he was accepted to Newcastle University after receiving excellent scores in his science A-levels. He began studying electrical and electronic engineering at the age of 18. Instead of becoming a comedian, people assumed he would become a scientist or an engineer. At the age of 20, he received his diploma in 1975. He then pursued a master's degree at Queen's College, Oxford, following in his father's footsteps. Self-tuning control systems are a fairly complicated topic that was the focus of his MSc. He even began, but did not complete, a PhD. He sensed that something was drawing him in a different way. Rowan didn't stand out in class, according to Chris Robson, his teacher. However, he changed completely when he took the stage. The true change started at that point. In 1975, while attending Oxford, Rowan became a member of the Etc. Review Group and the Theatre Club. He got to know Richard Curtis, a young writer. During this period, their lives would be altered by this encounter. It was at a practice in early 1976 that Richard first saw Rowan perform. Later on, he claimed that a quiet, humorous-looking man was standing in the corner. However, Richard was astounded when Rowan eventually gave a performance. Rowan drew a drawing about driving and a scene in which he spoke and mimed simultaneously. Richard referred to it as pure genius. In August 1976, Rowan gave a performance at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe with the Oxford Review. He had never performed in front of a large national crowd before. Rowan's route became evident after the show's success. He was no longer merely an engineer, he was an entertainer. Rowan began his master's program in electrical engineering in 1975 while he was still at Oxford. He published his thesis in 1978 after conducting thorough investigation. However, he was acting more and more. It was complicated by the clash between comedy and engineering. Nevertheless, he retained that technical background. He would go on to become one of the first famous people to purchase electric vehicles years later. He purchased his first totally electric vehicle 9 years prior to 2023, and his first hybrid 18 years prior. Additionally, he applied his expertise to critique environmental claims and electric vehicle technologies. Despite everything, it was obvious that comedy was his real passion. He had made the theater his home. His first significant achievement occurred in 1979 when he developed a radio program for BBC Radio 3 titled The Atkinson People. He portrayed a number of fictional figures, including French philosopher Georges Dupont and Sir Corin Basin. Griff Rhys-Jones produced it, and Richard Curtis contributed to its writing. Despite being clever and humorous, not many people watched the show. Few people heard it because it was broadcast during a time slot not intended for comedies. Critics acknowledged his talent nonetheless. Like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it was recorded in stereo. It demonstrated that Rowan was prepared for something greater, even though it didn't make him famous. The years 1978-1979 were difficult. He was repeatedly turned down by the BBC. His humor was beyond their comprehension. He was depressed and lost. During auditions and interviews, his stutter worsened, which made things more difficult. He considered giving up comedy and returning to engineering at one point. However, something occurred that altered everything. He discovered that his stammer disappeared when he was acting. He gained authority from the discovery. He didn't have to speak in his own words. He could let the characters speak for themselves. Rowan continued working with others he had known at Oxford, such as Angus Deaton. Angus frequently portrayed the somber straight man during their radio appearances together. Rowan's crazy characteristics were able to bloom as a result. Later on, Angus made appearances in Mr. Bean and a Black Adder episode. While TV was still rejecting Rowan, their cooperation gave him self-assurance. He was able to develop without the stress of constantly being on television. Rowan returned to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in 1979. He was 24 now. At the new Wireworks Theatre, he was even spotted clearing debris and assisting with stage construction. Like an old Buster Keaton movie, his act was largely silent. Others noticed something unique, while others didn't understand and even left. Few comedians were ever able to exploit his body and face like he did. He was able to make the proper connections in the sector thanks to his performance. He made another attempt at TV by 1980. Canned Laughter, a pilot he produced, debuted in 1979. Among his many roles was an early iteration of Mr. Bean. Despite its cleverness, the show was not picked up as a series. During numerous of these auditions, his stammer reappeared, adding to the anxiety. However, he started to learn how to defeat it. He immersed himself fully in his characters. He had perfected the art of using performance to conceal his stutter by the time he made his Wogan debut in 1980 at the age of 25. That marked the start of the struggle's end. The world started to notice a quiet, unusual youngster who had transformed suffering into laughter after that. The life of Rowan Atkinson was permanently altered. He was given the opportunity to appear on a brand new comedy program called Not the 900 News by the BBC in 1979. A general election caused it to be postponed from its original April broadcast date. At the time, the BBC believed the show might be too political. On October 16, 1979, the first episode was eventually shown. However, things didn't work out. Very few people watched it. Fewer than 1 million people watched. Critics detested it. It should never be shown on television, according to some, who also termed it offensive. It was the worst half hour of television he had ever seen, according to Mel Smith, who would go on to become a close co-star. Surprisingly, however, the BBC controller found it appealing. Without delay, he placed an order for another set. Because of that choice, the program was salvaged and became one of the most significant British comedies ever. Rowan collaborated with Mel Smith, Griff Rhys-Jones, and Pamela Stephenson, all of whom went on to become famous. It wasn't always easy behind the scenes. Chris Langham was let go after just one series in 1980. This did not sit well with Rowan. By demonstrating his loyalty, he attempted to persuade the producers to keep Chris, but Griff Rhys-Jones took his place. Chris refused to speak to any of them for years because of the acrid consequences. Furthermore, the BBC began reducing the budget for the program. They even made jokes about it in an episode titled The Outrageously Expensive, Not the 900 News, since it got that terrible. They had to reduce minor roles and cease filming in opulent settings. Rowan's serious and meticulous side began to emerge at this period. The show's tone also shifted. It shifted away from shock humor and toward witty and strange comedy. Creative disputes behind closed doors were evident. Then came the moment that would forever alter Rowan's life. Gerald the Gorilla was a sketch that appeared during the second series in 1980. Mel Smith portrayed a professor who professed to have trained Gerald, a gorilla. However, Rowan's portrayal of Gerald in a gorilla suit revealed that he was both more intelligent and angry than anyone had anticipated. Gerald yelled, "Wild!" I was absolutely livid. That line became famous when the professor claimed to have captured him in the wild in 1968. As a result of the sketch's widespread popularity, actual scientists began mockingly referring to groupings of baboons as a flange. The episode contributed to the show's 1982 Montreux Festival Silver Rose Award. The BAFTA for Best Light Entertainment Program was also won by it. Rowan's reputation as a master of odd humor and physical comedy began with that one sketch. It also prepared him for his subsequent parts in Mr. Bean and Black Adder. An even more unexpected event occurred in 1981. I Like Trucking, a humorous song from the program, was included on the CD Hedgehog sandwich. The song was successful. Despite having no prior musical experience, Rowan ended up appearing on a charting single. In the sketch, Rowan actually drove the vehicle as the other 4 actors sang it together. He was not acting. At the time, he had a legitimate Class 1 lorry license. That little detail added to the sketch's humor and authenticity. After being released as a single under BBC recordings, the song gained enough popularity to eventually appear on BBC compilations. It demonstrated Rowan's versatility as a comic. He was capable of more. He was capable at driving, acting, singing, and entertaining in a variety of settings. However, things took a terrible turn by 1982. It wasn't the ratings that caused the show to stop in March of that year. The reason was that Rowan and the rest of the cast had reached a breaking point. They were worn out. The writing, the acting, the pressure, the quick tempo, and the anxiety. Everything got to be too much. Specifically, Rowan was having difficulty. He had struggled with anxiety for a long time, and the burden was too much for him. Thus, they left rather of capitalizing on their achievement and going on for fame or fortune. Hollywood is where Pamela Stephenson went. In 1983, Rowan immediately began filming Blackadder. Alas, Smith and Jones is a show that Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones created. It was uncommon for them to decide to resign in the height of their fame. It demonstrated how highly Rowan regarded his artistic integrity and mental well-being over financial gain. Rowan unveiled the Blackadder on June 15, 1983. It was a crazy notion. Richard Curtis, with whom he had collaborated on Not the 900 News, co-created it. In their idealized universe, Richard III had prevailed at Bosworth Field. They used massive sets and costumes, and Rowan played Prince Edmund, the cunning and power-hungry son of King Richard IV. The filming took place at Elwick Castle. The program constituted a huge risk. Even Australia's 7 network provided some funding for it. To make fun of it, they included a joke in the credits that said there was more dialogue by William Shakespeare. Although it was a creative leap, the cost was high. After the first series, the BBC almost cancelled it due to the exorbitant expenditures. The shoots continued to be ruined by rain. The filming of the castle went on and on. The budget was completely destroyed by the enormous cast lists and period clothing. Even the reviews weren't very positive. It wasn't as hilarious as Rowan's previous work, according to critics. The show's foreign Emmy victory was the only thing that saved it. The BBC felt confident enough to give it another try after that prize. However, they made significant adjustments this time. No more large sets, no more castles. The following season would be sharper, smaller, and less expensive. The future of the show was drastically altered by that choice. Blackadder 2 debuted in 1986. It was all novel. As a co-writer, Ben Elton contributed tighter narratives and quicker humor. They concentrated on character moments instead of the big movie scenes. Bigger actors like Brian Blessed no longer had to share the limelight with Rowan. Now he was the star of the show. The cast was one of the most significant adjustments. The audience instantly fell in love with Miranda Richardson's portrayal of Queenie, a squeaky and comic queen. There were other notable cameos, such as the inimitable Tom Baker as Redbeard Rum. Baldrick, who was formerly intelligent, became the endearing fool that fans loved, while Rowan's character Edmund grew sardonic and astute. Some supporters were first displeased. Rowan Wallen was even dubbed E of the Week by a critic. However, popular sentiment evolved over time. People came to see that this version was superior. The chemistry was flawless, the jokes were more incisive, and the characters were more nuanced. When the last season, Blackadder Goes Forth, premiered in 1989, it was unexpected. It took place in the First World War trenches. Captain Blackadder was portrayed by Rowan, Private Baldrick was Tony Robinson, and Lieutenant George was Hugh Laurie. It was serious, yet also humorous. Without losing its comedy, it demonstrated the futility of war. Joking about World War I was not disrespectful, despite people's fears. It had strength. At the 1990 BAFTAs, it took home the Best Comedy Series award. The award for Best Light Entertainment Act went to Rowan as well. On the British Film Institute's selection of the greatest British television programs ever, the program came in at number 16 in 2000. Additionally, with more than 282,000 votes, it came in second place in a BBC poll for Britain's finest sitcom of 2004. The soldier's slow-motion charge into no man's land in the last scene turned into one of the most poignant television endings ever. The cast collaborated like a family behind the scenes. Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie and Rowan frequently improvised. They had faith in one another. Rowan once claimed that because the pressure wasn't solely on him, this endeavor was the least difficult of his career. They all carried it together. There was magic about their chemistry. The latter episodes retained many of the spontaneous lines. Rowan subsequently stated that it was impossible to reproduce what they had in the 1980s. It was a unique moment. Mr. Bean then arrived. 13.45 million people saw the first episode, which debuted on January 1, 1990. In the UK, 9 million people watched it. It was viewed by 900 million people worldwide. Although it was one of the night's most tweeted moments, Rowan suffered greatly as a result of the performance. He was exhausted for weeks as a result. Nowadays, a lot of people consider that to be his final significant physical appearance as Mr. Bean. Even without Mr. Rowan continued to take people by surprise, Bean and Blackadder. He performed as an anxious priest at 4 weddings and a funeral in 1994. The film was filmed in 6 weeks for a mere $3 million. $245.7 million was earned. His wedding scene, in which he mishandles the vows, became famous. His next major character was shaped in part by that minor role. He starred in the espionage satire Johnny English in 2003. With a $40 million budget, it made $160 million globally. It began with his previous Barclaycard advertisements. He did dancing routines, physical comedy, and action situations. A follow-up, Johnny English Reborn, was released in 2011 as a result of the success. Despite only making $8.3 million in the US, it had a $45 million budget. Audiences throughout the world adored it. 2018 saw the release of Johnny English Strikes Again. The narrative focused on digital spying and a cyber attack. Rowan added substance to the position by drawing on his actual engineering degree from Oxford. The movie appealed to viewers concerned about online safety by striking a balance between traditional espionage fun and contemporary cyber anxieties. With Keeping Mom, Rowan tried something new in 2005. He portrayed a preacher handling issues within the family. The film did not perform well. Viewers and critics remained silent. Some found it too strange, while others found it too gloomy. Rowan stepped back from film as a result of the failure. Before making a triumphant return with Johnny English Reborn, he took a 2-year hiatus to concentrate on live performances and television. In the late 1980s, Rowan Atkinson first got to know Sunetra Sastry. She worked on the BBC show Blackadder as a makeup artist. In fact, Rowan changed cosmetic artists solely to speak with her. His co-star Stephen Fry, who had also intended to ask her out, was discreetly saddened by it. However, Rowan arrived first. In the UK, 9 million people watched it. It was viewed by 900 million people worldwide. Although it was one of the night's most tweeted moments, Rowan suffered greatly as a result of the performance. He was exhausted for weeks as a result. Nowadays, a lot of people consider that to be his final significant physical appearance as Mr. Bean. Even without Mr. Rowan continued to take people by surprise, Bean and Blackadder. He performed as an anxious priest at 4 weddings and a funeral in 1994. The film was filmed in 6 weeks for a mere $3 million. $245.7 million was earned. His wedding scene, in which he mishandles the vows, became famous. His next major character was shaped in part by that minor role. He starred in the espionage satire Johnny English in 2003. With a $40 million budget, it made $160 million globally. It began with his previous Barclaycard advertisements. He did dancing routines, physical comedy, and action situations. A follow-up, Johnny English Reborn, was released in 2011 as a result of the success. Despite only making $8.3 million in the US, it had a $45 million budget. Audiences throughout the world adored it. 2018 saw the release of Johnny English Strikes Again. The narrative focused on digital spying and a cyber attack. Rowan added substance to the position by drawing on his actual engineering degree from Oxford. The movie appealed to viewers concerned about online safety by striking a balance between traditional espionage fun and contemporary cyber anxieties. With Keeping Mom, Rowan tried something new in 2005. He portrayed a preacher handling issues within the family. The film did not perform well. Viewers and critics remained silent. Some found it too strange, while others found it too gloomy. Rowan stepped back from film as a result of the failure. Before making a triumphant return with Johnny English Reborn, he took a 2-year hiatus to concentrate on live performances and television. In the late 1980s, Rowan Atkinson first got to know Sunetra Sastry. She worked on the BBC show Black Adder as a makeup artist. In fact, Rowan changed cosmetic artists solely to speak with her. His co-star Stephen Fry, who had also intended to ask her out, was discreetly saddened by it. However, Rowan arrived first. On February 5, 1990, they were married in the Russian tea room in New York after falling in love. His best man was Stephen Fry. Together, they had 2 kids. 1993 saw the birth of their daughter Lily, and 1995 saw the birth of their son Benjamin. They remained together for 24 years. But in 2014, everything was different. Sunetra and Rowan split up that year. November 2015 saw the finalization of the divorce. Sunetra said Rowan was acting irrationally in court. Rowan had discreetly begun dating Louise Ford, a much younger woman, at the same time. Sunetra was devastated to have someone so young take her position, and the media was overflowing with news. In March 2001, Rowan experienced a terrible event. His family and he were traveling through Kenya when their private pilot abruptly passed out in mid-air. Despite Rowan's lack of flying experience, he grasped the controls and was able to maintain the aircraft's stability. He waited until the pilot awoke and brought the aircraft down safely in Nairobi. At the time, Rowan was 46 years old. The actor who played Mr. Bean revealed something unexpected in that moment. He remained composed and saved everyone in real life. He rarely discusses the psychological damage it caused, but if he hadn't taken immediate action, the flight might have ended tragically. Many were taken aback by Rowan's address in Parliament in October 2012. It has to do with freedom of expression. He gave a 9-minute speech defending the freedom to express one's opinions, regardless of whether they are offensive to others. He stated that people should have the freedom to express themselves and that far too many things are deemed objectionable. In a few days, that speech had over 140,000 views after becoming viral. But he wasn't universally accepted. He was accused of defending hate speech by certain progressive activists and LGBTQ+ organizations. The legislation did, however, change. The Public Order Act's provision prohibiting derogatory language was eliminated. It became clear that Rowan was more than just a humorous guy. He didn't hesitate to voice his strong ideas. Rowan started a new relationship in 2013 while performing in a play titled Quartermain's Terms. His age was 58. Louise Ford, his co-star, was 31. In order to be with Rowan, she broke up with her boyfriend, comedian James Acaster. Many referred to the 27-year age gap between them as a scandal. Around the same time that Rowan and Sonetra split up in 2014, the news broke. They were fiercely criticized by reporters and fans. However, Rowan remained silent about it. Louise gave birth to their daughter Isella in December 2017. He previously remarked, "The only thing more important than not talking about your personal life is not talking about why you're not talking about it." At age 62, Rowan became a parent once more. Rowan had always been perceived as being in favor of the environment. He has advocated for climate change and driven electric and hybrid vehicles since the 1980s. However, he published a shocking essay in The Guardian in June 2023. I was an early adopter, and the title read, "I love electric vehicles, but I'm starting to feel like I was tricked." According to the article, the production of electric vehicles results in 70% higher greenhouse gas emissions than that of regular cars. He had criticism for EV batteries. Fox Business and other conservative media outlets carried that article's headlines. His assertions were deemed misleading by irate environmental scientists. Then it was revealed that Rowan had an enormous collection of supercars, including rare Aston Martins and McLarens. His article was even held accountable by Parliament for holding down EV sales in the UK. His detractors said that despite leading a very high-carbon lifestyle, he supported fossil fuel businesses. In 1994, when Disney offered him the part of Zazu in The Lion King, Rowan declined. His voice became one of the most memorable aspects of the movie, despite his claim that he had never enjoyed voice acting. Globally, The Lion King brought in $968.5 million. It became the highest-grossing hand-drawn movie ever made by Disney. His Zazu performance was a huge smash, even though he didn't perform the singing voice. The 2019 remake, which nevertheless generated $1.6 billion, did not feature him. He was missed by fans. It was one of those odd times when he achieved one of his greatest professional victories by doing something he didn't want to do. Rowan made a startling admission during an appearance on The Graham Norton Show in 2018. He claimed that filming was incredibly challenging and draining. Nothing he did ever seemed good enough to him. Mr. Bean, he had already expressed his desire to retire to the Telegraph back in 2012. He stated it could be a little depressing to witness someone in their 50s acting like a child. However, he had a change of heart in 2016 and declared that he would never retire the character. Then, in 2018, he underwent yet another transformation, saying Mr. Fans were perplexed. But it was clear how difficult it was for Bean to let go of the persona that made him famous when he added, "You must never say never." Millions of people were delighted by Mr. Bean, but Rowan experienced stress and burnout as a result. Rowan made a comeback to physical comedy in 2022 with the Netflix series Man vs. Bee. He portrayed Trevor, a housekeeper who is attempting to eradicate a solitary bee. 10 to 20 minutes were allotted to each of the 9 programs. Filming was difficult for him, but it seemed like pleasure. At the age of 67, Rowan was performing exploits reminiscent of his Mr. Bean days. He claimed that even a bike scene in a previous film, Mr. Bean's Holiday, left him feeling totally worn out. He acknowledged that he had never been athletic. In addition to being a throwback to the past, Man vs. Bee served as a reminder that his body was no longer capable of supporting the same degree of physical humor. Rowan turned 70 on January 6, 2025. He had been making people laugh for more than 45 years, and he was born in Newcastle upon Tyne. His birthday generated a lot of online discussion. While many fans wished him well and shared their favorite footage, others questioned whether he would soon retire. Rowan had previously stated that performing physical comedy becomes more difficult as one ages. He seems more willing to slow down. Some believed that the time had come to finally bid Mr. Bean farewell. By September 2025, there were over 12.01 billion views and 35.1 million subscribers on the official Mr. Bean YouTube channel. Each month, it earned between $77,000 and $232,000. It received between 1.5 and 2.3 million views per day. Fans of the figure might be found in Mumbai, Tokyo, and São Paulo. Comedians such as Sacha Baron Cohen said that they were influenced by Mr. Bean's manner. The Atkinson method is currently taught in comedy schools. It was a straightforward, wordless comedy that was universally relatable. Rowan was dubbed the Charlie Chaplin of the 21st century. He evolved into more than just a British performer. He became a worldwide celebrity. A Mr. Bean fan theory was finally verified in September 2024. People thought he was truly an alien for years. In the cartoon episode Double Trouble, that theory proved to be accurate. Mr. Bean encounters his own clones in a spaceship. According to Screen Rant, the program formally acknowledged that he was not from Earth. It was also alluded at in the opening of the original episode, a Latin chant that reads, "Behold, the man who is a bean. His name was simply Mr., and a bean falls from the sky," without a first name, as if aliens were unaware of human naming conventions. Although Rowan had alluded to it once in 1993, it was now included in the narrative. Although horrified, fans were eager to learn the truth. Rowan has an amazing award record despite his self-doubt. He has had 18 nominations and 12 major awards. He received a Laurence Olivier Award for Rowan Atkinson in Review and a BAFTA for Not the 900 News in 1981. He won for Blackadder Goes Forth's Best Light Entertainment Performance in 1990. Between 1991 and 1994, Mr. Bean received 4 BAFTA nominations on his own. He received an International Emmy as well. Rowan continues to claim that he doesn't feel successful in spite of everything. He questions himself all the time. However, he is unquestionably one of the best of all time in the eyes of his followers worldwide.